Right. Good evening, everybody. This is episode 22 of the Blob Watch, I believe. And this is quite a special episode because this is a bit different. This is more of a sort of, I guess you could say, like an interview with Elizabeth here, who's caused a bit of stir, haven't you? With I guess with the anti-patriotic crowd in this country, and you were cancelled for this, weren't you?
Indeed.
So, probably just to clarify from the start, I believe that the university has somewhat resolved, or they're in the process of resolving the action that was taken previously. Am I correct in thinking?
Yeah, that's correct. So the decision which got me banned in the first place from the student union for 2 weeks has been appealed. And luckily, they've set up guidelines now to basically stop any other students like me in the future from facing consequences for silly reports like that, which is really good. So they are attempting to try and protect freedom of speech, which I give them credit for.
That's good. I think a lot of it was there was so much pushback from what was going on, especially amongst, I guess you would say, the sort of more mainstream quote unquote right wing. Like I know that you were mentioned in the LBC and I think also Talk Radio as well.
I was invited on to Talk Radio. LBC, that was crazy. I wasn't expecting it to be talked about on there. Honestly, I wasn't actually expecting it to blow up this much. I thought I was just going to be in a Telegraph article that was about it. But it's been blowing up a lot.
Yeah, and there's just a few people in chat. I think my mic is it echoing? So I got a bit of a boomer mic going on. If I turn it down a bit, someone just say if that's is that a bit better? If in chat, if someone could just say is that a bit better, or is it still echoing? Okay, no one's saying anything, so I assume it's okay. So Elizabeth, could you walk through with us what the sort of backstory of all this? So the motion that was brought before the university, I guess, is it like a debating society?
So it was actually the student council. It was a student council meeting, and there was a lot of us there. And the motion of this bill was to carry on a ban, which banned the British military from advertising at freshers, which is completely unreasonable, which is utterly ridiculous. And it got into. I think one of my first comments was I failed to understand why the international students you're speaking on behalf on, who came from countries Britain used to occupy. I don't understand why they would come to Britain to study if this country truly committed atrocities, in their homelands. Because personally, I wouldn't go to a country and study there if I knew that they, terrorized my ancestors. So yeah, they reported me for discrimination. There was no racial intent behind it. I think it was a good point. And then later in the debate, after a Canadian friend of mine said Rule Britannia in the chat in the context of that he was proud of the contributions the British military made in Korea to his family, he said Rule Britannia. So I decided to say Rule Britannia after him. Okay, I also got reported for that.
So because that obviously that bit wasn't reported.
No, it wasn't.
Afterwards, because one of your friends, so one of your Canadian friends, who you said placed Rule Britannia because of the, I guess the active service by troops during the Korean conflict. But one thing I was just thinking, the motion itself, does that, I imagine that would extend to Scottish regiments as well, looking to
Hmm.
recruit as well. So Scottish regiments like the, I guess like the Gordon Highlanders and such, who are somewhat native to Aberdeen area, um, would also be classed as band um, band colonizers, which is I just find the
Yeah.
wording from all of this just really bizarre, because it just doesn't seem that they are the complaints about this and the complaints about what you said has any sort of basis in reality. Especially the dialogue I've had with some of your critics over today over the last 24 hours.
Well, exactly, and luckily, the bill did get overturned, so now the British military are allowed back on campus, which is a huge win. And that's something we're all proud of. And I think that's the reason they reported us. To be honest, I think they were quite upset that they couldn't carry on the ban, and they were embarrassed.
Mm,
In the chat, I suppose, because I didn't have any personal beef with anyone in that council. I didn't know them at all. I'm a first year, right?
yeah,
And they never met me before. I've never said anything else at that university. So yeah, they just blew this out of proportion.
yeah, and the sort of that's been reported was the phrase "Rule Britannia," which had it was the reason that you were suspended of this was because, and this is a quotation that I what was it? It was on the, I think it was on the Scottish Herald, because I thought, well, I'll pick a newspaper which is more friendly to the opponent's side, because they're the ones that have sort of been pushing this harmful and sort of harmful language that can cause offensive
Hmm.
offence and harm. Um, the phrase itself being "Rule Britannia." Um, and I just wondered, do you think any of the people in who were complaining about the message that you put on, because it was on a chat bar, that, am I correct? You didn't actually say "Rule Britannia"; it was you typed it in on the,
Yeah, I typed it. Yeah.
yeah, and also your Canadian friend as well. Do you think that the people who immediately complained about that understand what the sort of historical background and the context to the song "Rule Britannia"?
I don't think they're aware of it because obviously, Rule Britannia is actually written by a Scot. Um, as Scotland had a massive part in the British Empire. Um,
Mm,
and they've probably seen the backlash over Rule Britannia in the summer with people claiming it was discrimination. When it's like it's no different from an American saying "God save America." It's just really a patriotic statement in Britain to say I love my country. But yeah,
yeah,
I think yeah.
I
Sorry, go on.
mean, I mean, I think one the thing I've had with especially the supposed liberals, liberal students in Scotland, who I no doubt probably, I don't know if they go to the same university as you, but I imagine there's some connection there, because they were quite eager to cajole me into um, asking why you sort of questions about your TikTok habits, which we'll sort of talk about, and maybe because when something like this blows up, they obviously dig into your background, dig into your past,
Hmm.
um, and provide no context to
Yeah, yeah,
um, what happened. So um, I was going to say yes, of course. People, because I know I get some American viewers as well. Rule Britannia is a song that was, if I remember correctly, it was written in 1767 or 1769, and it was immediately after the 7 Years' War, where we had won. I guess you could say, like, you could compare it to like the First World War, um, where we won North America from the French, and we won in Europe as well against the French. So the French were quite heavily defeated, and their empire shrunk considerably. And so the song, in many ways, if you wanted to if you want to go down the line, the narrative of this song or this phrase as an oppressive term, I mean, unless you're oppressing the French, maybe you could argue anti-French. But I mean, of course, the French are white, so I don't know why these progressive lunatics have a problem with that. So I was going to say, yeah. So we'll talk about the motion itself. Actually, no. Let's start from the university itself. Could you explain the sort of culture in the university? Is it when it comes to the political aspect and the activist side of your university, Aberdeen University? How would you describe it overall?
Well, I've had no issues with the university at all until the student union. I would actually probably say it's a bit more conservative than most universities. We have a pro-life society, which, to be fair, they had to win a legal battle to be affiliated with our student union. And
Oh,
you know, I wouldn't say there's a lot of communists on campus, like a lot of radical lefties, and in most of my classes, there's not a massive, push of their opinions down your throat. Sometimes there is, but it's not to the scale of other universities. I suppose it's a bit more moderate, which is good. But
mm.
obviously, student unions with every university tends to embarrass the actual university because they're always quite radically left wing, which is the case in this situation.
And it's quite interesting because it does play into the idea that universities do sort of bend the knee, so to say, to a very small percentage of their students. Um, and I do wonder if this is it's more reflective around the country, where actually a lot of the students probably don't buy into what's been pushed through the universities, but because the most vocal group in universities tend to be left wing, very much progressives, and very much we've had this import from America, this really vicious racial identitarianism, which is sort of taken the left in this country by storm, and it seems to be mainstream, left wing politics now within the Labour Party, and I guess you could say up with you the SNP in Scotland and such. It Do you think that the university's sort of decision originally to suspend you was a knee jerk to social media complaints from this?
Um, So I have no idea. There was no social media complaints. I don't think anyone was aware of the situation. I originally went to the press. I went to Jack Hartfield at first to broke the story, because I didn't want it happening to any other students in the future. I think it maybe they were lazy with the complaint and just decided to get me in trouble because it might have been easier. I don't know, or maybe they actually thought what I said was, discrimination because of, the offence in the summer. Um, I know they've apologised for it, because originally what they were supposed to do was interview me, which they didn't. So they
Mm,
dealt with it badly. But I
yeah,
have no idea about their intent.
no, and I'm aware that something similar has happened to another university student at Aberdeen a couple of years ago, where his statement was that gender studies effectively should be abolished because it's a waste of money. Um, uh,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, that's one of my friends, Derek. Yeah, he was banned from the debating society, believe it or not. I don't know what type of debating society that is, for saying that gender studies is a waste of taxpayers' money. And he was banned for that, I think, for a month or a couple of months, which is just completely ridiculous.
yes, and I mean it's just really funny to see where universities the sort of standard of or the lack of standards for debate has really fallen, because um, I don't understand. I fail to understand even now, really, really what the problem is, even with with the statement that you made, or so just saying rule Britannia, and his statement, because um, do you think this is just more of inherently or with the sort of authoritarian progressivist nature that is in university campuses?
It might be. It seems like a pattern among many campuses, to be honest. I can't really think of a university where someone, hasn't been cancelled or thrown out for their opinion, maybe.
Mm. And just well, I was going to oh yeah, the other thing I was going to raise is you went to the press to pretty much inform them how what had happened. How did the so who did you go to first, and how did that conversation?
I went to Jack Hartfield first. Brilliant newsman, by the way. Highly recommend everyone follow him on Twitter. He broke the story for the National File, and it's a brilliant piece. I think it gives a lot of context behind the situation, because he read all the emails and everything, and he looked at the things, the breaches that they got me for. And then I think Calvin Robinson tweeted about it, because we sent him Jack's article, and the Telegraph became aware of it and asked if they could cover it, which I was happy to do.
So what was his
Sorry,
name
Jack
again?
Hart. Oh, that's him. He's the fourth one down.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, brilliant guy. Highly recommend everyone follow him.
Oh, fantastic. Well, everyone give him a follow, because it's important. I mean, of course, there's been really high profile I guess you see examples of cancel culture recently. Where I mean, I think the big one in the sort of cultural sphere has to be the Gina Carano cancellation from the Mandalorian series, and there was obviously an interview with Ben Shapiro where effectively she said, which I thought rings very true, is that we have to basically stand against them in their cancellation effort and just say, we're not going to be cancelled. We need to move to alternative platforms, and we continue with what we have to say, because ultimately we do have the right to free speech. Maybe not in Scotland at the moment, but hopefully that can change down the road. But yeah, I mean, and so Jack broke the story, and it started to spread. Who else? Calvin. So Calvin as well.
He tweeted about it, and some Telegraph journalist, picked up on it.
Is this Calvin Robinson?
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yes, I've seen him before, actually. He, again, very good. And so this was all picked up, but also the I guess you could say the likes of the Mirror and such have also.
It's everywhere. It's on like every article I can think of. Like, I think it's on the Daily Mail, the Mirror, the Metro, RT. The Russians have picked up on it. It's absolutely everywhere.
I think if you just type in Rule Britannia, probably come.
I'll prefer not to look at the tweets, thanks, if that's okay. Sorry.
That's all right. No, that's all right. I'll just get away from that bit sort of stuff. Yeah. So a lot of your I guess you could say a lot of the people who are criticized, who have come after you, have said to me, "Oh, well, you don't know the full. It's not. It wasn't just about the Rule Britannia bit that it said. You also someone sent to me a link to a TikTok post where you were doing."
Oh, sorry, I just want to clear that up. So when I was 16, I was like a bench. I suppose I was apolitical in a sense that I didn't really have any knowledge on the extremely far left and the extremely far right. I didn't really think they existed, to be honest. but I was, I was kind of getting into conservatism. I suppose I was a Ben Shapiro fan, massive Ben Shapiro fan. Um, and it was the era of 2018 TikTok as well. And as you know, during the era of 2018 TikTok, there was a lot of edgy posting going on, a lot of trolling, a lot of, kitchen jokes and all of that. And I thought it would be funny, with this little beat to draw. And it's completely stupid. I won't do it again today because it's like, in the context of today, it's just completely ridiculous, completely disavowed. But I drew a SWAT sticker. And
Yeah,
obviously, I actually deleted that in 2018, believe it or not. So someone's had that saved on their phone for 3 years when I was 16 years old. When I was a kid, they've had that saved on their phone to try and cancel me, which is completely, completely weird.
yeah. First of all, and this is where it comes down to number one, the actual video itself. I'm not going to show for people who are wondering. I'm not going to show it because number one, it doesn't really show much in the sense, as you said, you draw
Yeah.
a swastika and then you do the mid German century salute. But I mean, I just want to remind, and I said this to a couple of your avid followers who seem to disagree with your motives on this. I do want to sort of show that again, a few years
Yeah.
ago, I mean, this was mainstream media stuff that dressing up as the Austrian artist himself, and
Yeah.
even I mean, like by their own logic, John Cleese should be cancelled.
They did try and cancel them, didn't they?
They did try. They tried to cancel him over. It was a different episode, but it was over. I think one of the characters, the Major, he said the gamer word, which is that caused the sort of Eye of Sauron to come crashing in upon the BBC. But yeah, I mean there has been so much of British comedy, which up until and American comedy as well, up until a few years ago, that would regularly caricature the Nazis. I'll say the Nazis in this, and for whatever reason, I mean, from what I saw, what you did, it does look like a joke. I don't see you actually putting a manifesto together. It's not like a political statement that you put together. And in fact, I mean, we mentioned this before we went live. It does. I find that a lot of the people who are genuine neo-Nazis or white supremacists tend to be really, really offended when you take the mick out of the legacy of the German or the Nazis and everything. So as I said, I imagine I bet you if you sat down like Richard Spencer or someone like that and watched your TikTok, I imagine there would be a part of him who would probably feel number one slightly offended and be quite pissed off about the state of your swastika, which I find very poor.
Exactly. I mean, anyone who knows me knows that my views don't align with fascism. I mean, I'm like a British patriot. I don't understand why I would side with an ideology that my country went to war with, that my ancestors, died fighting against. It's just completely ludicrous. But obviously, the left will, grasp at any type of straws to try and slander somebody. I mean, they went after my likes, like the woman who originally cancelled me, like stalked everything I liked, and I think I liked an ethno-nationalist tweet by accident due to the image, which was people celebrating in a street, and I didn't see the caption. So she tried to slander me, calling me an ethno-nat because of that. There was another one of me liking a Milo Yiannopoulos article, and to be honest, I just like articles that I find interesting, which is probably like bad optics, you could say. But she got that. And then like people from my college when I was 16, they started coming out with stuff I said, and I completely disavow today, and they don't represent my values. But they wouldn't give any context to it. So the context of that was at college, I was badly bullied to the point where I tried to think of the most vile crap I could to say back to my bullies. which is stupid. I mean, it's completely ridiculous.
Yeah.
For me to say it. But I was angry, I suppose you could say. And that was the context behind the file. The file comments. They don't represent my views today. I would never repeat, what I said to anyone today, because that's not my character. It's not my principles anymore. So it's just completely ludicrous.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine. I mean, I know of, because I'm obviously active. I'm people who may not know. I am active within the Conservative Party. I know for a fact there is a Labour councillor or he's a Labour activist. I think he was running for Labour councillor this year in Blackpool area. I know for a fact that when he was a lot younger, when I knew him in school, he was quite obsessed with the mid-century Germans, to such a point. There's a photo of him wearing an armband and doing the salutes, probably more salutes than you've done.
Jeez.
Um,
and they won't go after him, will they? They won't cancel him because he's left wing.
I think because he would just do what you've just done and just apologize, admitted that because like yourself, you've admitted that that those views that you stated don't represent you now, and that you wouldn't say it today. He would come out with probably a similar thing, and they would forgive him, and they would probably want to reward him for being so open, honest, and transparent about it. And we've seen this with the Democrats in America as well. Like the governor for Virginia, he dressed up in a Ku Klux Klan outfit. Even like Justin Trudeau in Canada, who was like blacked up 2 times that we know of. But he stated I cannot be certain that I've done it more than how many times I've done it. So all of these people are massive hypocrites.
They are. I mean, I was a kid when I said that. I was literally like, an iDubbbz fan at the time, an Alethea's Here fan at the time. I was a kid, an immature kid, and as kids we do stupid things. Like a lot of people at 15 draw SWAT stickers on their desks. That doesn't mean they're Nazis today. It just means they had an immature sense of humor back then. But 10 years down the road, I could be, I don't know, let's say I could be 29 or something like that, and I probably would still get cancelled for something I did as a teenager, which is completely ludicrous. We're adults, we're not children.
I think this does hark back to I don't know if you watch the Lotus Eaters and Carl Benjamin and such, but there's a very good take which they've talked about on there, is how the left approaches children, and in many ways they treat children, I guess you say, as adults. They because of the sort of all out sort of liberation of the sort of individual from all aspects of the patriarchal society and all that and what have you, that you end up having these things where you have children are exposed to drag queens, are exposed to political theory. And I think the reason why they would target you is they cannot draw sort of the moral distinction between a child and an adult, which is problem in on itself, because then it leads to even darker aspects of the left. And I mean, I'm really glad when I was 15 that there wasn't social media around. I mean, apart from like MySpace and such, there wasn't anything like we have now. And I'm as you said, I'm so glad, because there's plenty of stuff. There's plenty of stuff that I've said and done which would no doubt be as offensive and as you put out there. But no, I think it's good that we have this discussion about this.
Sorry to interrupt. Like one of their responses, because I apologized on Twitter. I don't think a lot of people saw it, but I apologized. Well, I suppose I tried to clear it up, and I think one of their responses was, "When I was 15, I never did that," which is such a ridiculous quote. You probably, people don't go through the same life experiences with other people. I'm sure people don't get into. Not all people have an edgy sense of humor when they're 50.
I mean, I
I mean,
find. Sorry,
I'm
go
not
on.
using that as an excuse, but I had ADHD, and sometimes I had like completely no filter, so I would come out with like ridiculous things without thinking about it, I suppose, which I wouldn't again repeat today.
No.
So it was a bit, you probably could say, as a result of it. But we all try to improve.
Mm. And this is the key thing, because obviously the way that the left can attack you on this Royal Britannia thing, because they know that the word itself and the framing, well, I assume that they are aware that the framing, that the terms that Royal Britannia is offensive, is something that they can't take seriously, because they have to know that this isn't a
Mm-hmm.
an offensive comment by any stretch of the
Yeah.
imagination. So what they have to do is they have to end up digging and find
Mm-hmm.
points in your life where you've made some content which fits up to that narrative.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Um,
exactly.
yeah,
I oh, sorry. Sorry to interrupt. Yeah, and they've done that as well because obviously it paints their ideology in a bad light, and they're saying, because we found these comments, this means it isn't the full story, although it was the full story, and there's many witnesses who were there at the meeting. I sent many journalists the emails so they know what I got reported for, which was the Royal Britannia thing. And another thing is, which I think people are going after me is because fundamentally I think they're quite jealous. A lot of neoconservatives are anyway, that I made it to the Telegraph. I had one person say today, "We've done it. We've exposed her so she can never get a fancy job in the future." Although
mm,
as my mom always tells me, when one door closes, another door opens.
that is very, very true, because that is very, very true indeed, that when one door closes, another one opens. When it comes to the neocon question, I do I do find neocons very fascinating creatures, because they are most of them, and there's one particular one where one of my friends in the chat here, Rubber, will be aware. There's one particular one who's a very, very nasty little weasel.
Ben Harris.
Oh God, how do you know?
We already know. We know, don't we? We know he is. He
We know,
is.
yeah. And
He is.
I've talked. I've talked about that person relentlessly, and just sort of I've done a whole thing of deconstructing his worldview, and I actually generally feel sorry for a lot of them, because I think some of them genuinely think that they're doing the right thing, and that makes it really sad, because they can't see that the left is using them as a tool to push the I guess sort of erode freedom of speech in our society, or what little we have.
Yeah, I mean, we by cancelling people, and it's like other people we've cancelled, not just me. By cancelling them, we're just literally giving the left more power, and it's just ridiculous that people don't realise that. Like when you kick people out of societies, for instance, because you don't want to be associated with them because of the left, you're literally, giving them a trophy to win with. It's ridiculous.
It is, and uh, on the topic of Ben Harris, for example, he will state that there is no such thing as cancel culture, or his other default position is, well, it might be there, but we shouldn't engage in the culture war because that's for the plebs, or that's beneath us. And so that is that's his default position when you present him with examples. But the problem is, in the most extreme example, you look at someone like Count Dankula, who taught his dog to do a Nazi salute, and as someone in the chat rightly said there, he couldn't get a job after it. This has
Yeah.
real effect. It does have real effect for many people, because the face, the name, you can just do one search away and of someone's name, and it's all that information
Yeah.
and what they've done is there. Um, I think when it comes to it, there is there's always a route. I mean, of course, with Count Dankula, he I guess you could say he became self-employed, and he's become very successful because of this.
I mean, the door opened for him, didn't it?
It did, and I mean, I think with you, it. I think with you, you're probably in a better position than he is, because he's known as the Nazi pug guy. I think you're from what I can see, you're known as the student who was kicked out because you said rule Britannia, and I think the majority. I think the important thing to remember is the majority of the population are mostly, I would say, overwhelmingly on your side on this particular issue.
Yeah. I've got a lot of people on Facebook, message after message. A lot of them are veterans actually, thanking me for what I did, saying, "Hey, I'm an ex-serviceman. I just want to, thank you for standing up to that university," which means a lot. It was all worth it in the end.
Yeah, I mean this thing, because bullies, they don't like to be stood up to. They are. I mean, it goes back to the old saying that they are the ultimate cowards, and they are, and that's I think when it comes to certain people, when you're in that position, I know it's very difficult because it's obviously the spotlight's on you, and the important thing is to always, I guess, have a sort of sense of perspective, and also.
Hello.
Sorry, did you get that?
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, I think you cut out. Sorry.
Yeah, I think I cut out slightly. I just said it's the important thing is to get a sense of like perspective on the world outside social media, because I think a lot of the problem with these people is they spend a lot of time on social media, and
yeah,
it's create. I think one of the problems of society today is that social media has produced really bad echo chambers, and I think you can say both on the radical left and the radical right, it's created these sort of gigantic echo chambers where people these sort of people are further from the reality and general public opinion, and unfortunately, because journalists live within these echo chambers as well, there seems to be this, especially mainstream news, that there's this belief that these views that are out there represent what the country thinks as well.
Yeah, it's quite ridiculous. I think a lot of people need to just log off, to be honest.
No, and I mean, it's really, really good actually that I mean, the fact that ex-servicemen as well have contacted you, because it shows that there is a lot of the sentiment that you presented, which again, I mean, this is the thing, saying rule Britannia should not be no offense, but it shouldn't be an act considered to be brave or outstanding, because it should just be a normal thing to say. It shouldn't,
it's completely true.
It shouldn't be this such a monumental occasion. I mean, how do you think we got to this stage in the education, like the universities itself? How do you think we got to this?
Well, I think we need to read Peter Hitchens' Abolishment of Britain to understand that.
Yeah, yes,
I think we do. I think it outlines it quite well.
Yeah, I mean,
it all happened in the 70s, which was the reform of the education system a little bit. I think that's how it happened.
Yeah, I mean, I have difference in opinion on certain things with Peter Hitchens. I do agree that there was an aspect of anti-Britishness that was, but I mean, it's always been bubbling. I mean, if you go back to oh God, I forgot the name now. This is really bad. If you go back to hang on a second. Let me just think. Oh, bloody hell. Yeah, I mean, you go back to the war period in the Second World War. You did have this element of elements within the middle class who were anti-British and sort of rooting for the Axis powers on the continent. And I think in today's society, that sort of re-emerged itself within, I guess you could say, the Remainers. Looking at the sort of post-Brexit Britain, it sort of exists within the Remainers. And it's really interesting because, as you said, it's affected the education system, where effectively having any pro-British values, number one, British values have been redefined to mean was it inclusion, diversity. Those are the two ones I hear most frequently, and then law and order, basically, as like the other one. And then, of course, the history on the British Empire itself is, I think it's such a disservice, because the narrative, the sort of revisionist narrative that has been pushed by the left on the British Empire is this almost as like the sort of the Belgian Congo. The sort of brutality of the Belgian Congo is the sort of empire that Britain once held, is completely untrue. And one of the old videos of Carl Benjamin, the Saga of the Cad, that's been sort of trending recently, has been how Britain abolished the slave trade, and how the might of our navy. Again, the song that's based around Rule Britannia, the fact that our navy was so powerful, we were able to bring an end the West African slave trade, and then later down the line the sort of East African as well. And we never got to the Arab slave trade, but and not many people like to talk about that particular part in history.
It's crazy. I mean, there's a lot of demonization of the British Empire. No one will, bring up things like the Belgian Congo or the Japanese Empire or anything like that, because we have to remember imperialism was a massive aspect in the world during that time. Nearly every country had an empire, or they were occupied by another empire.
Yeah, it's not a unique experience to any particular racial or ethnic group. It is a universal experience that existed in the pre-Enlightenment world, which, as I say, it was not a pretty world, hence why we say pre-Enlightenment, but it was something that existed. I am curious to know your fellow students on the university, who, again, in the articles that I've seen, when they talk about colonization, I see the word colonization over again when describing, I guess, sort of describing anti-patriotic views. What is their definition? What have you picked up on of what their definition of colonization is? Because I don't think they understand the meaning of the word.
Well, I think they believe, firstly, that colonization was a fundamental evil in the world. They don't think they take into account what colonization did to other countries, such as advanced countries. You could say improve their medicine and so on, build railways, bring ideas of democracy, which people believe are fundamentally important. They don't see that. What they see is this narrative that, like, every country that had an empire and took over another country just raped and, killed the native people, which wasn't always the case, although there's many cases of it, as we can see with the Spanish Empire, for example.
Yeah. You can take that. I have this really problem with the left with their definition on colonization, because if you wanted to be really autistic about the term itself, it dates back to the Roman period, and it was these small towns after Rome would conquer new territory, say in Gaul or Spain or what have you, they would build colonas, which would hence colonization, and it would be populated with Roman citizens, and the local. It would help Romanize the local populace who've been conquered, and so that's how where the term comes from, and it was used quite frequently as well in have you read Machiavelli's The Prince at all?
No, I don't think I've heard of it.
Oh, it's actually quite good because it talks about how a ruler should hold on and rule his quote unquote principality. So how someone should rule a state, what the several components are of it, and he referenced colonies, and what he means is when you go into, say you're a feudal king and you want to conquer land in, say you're the king of France and you want to conquer land in like Milan or something, is one of the examples he uses. You have to, number one, understand that the populace, you have to get the populace on side, you have to create a bond with the populace. You also have to have certain elements of the culture and society, so you can't just go steamrolling in there and sort of disregard all the customs or the cultures, because that's how empires fail.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's many cases of the British Empire doing that, especially in India. I think to start off with, the East India Company made it a rule to embrace their culture, which is a large factor to why they didn't outright ban things such as widow burning and killing newborn babies who were female because they weren't male, which was a common practice in India during the time.
Yeah. I mean, because that's the thing. That's actually a very good example of India. So that's with the, as you said, the widow burning and the practice of killing children. Part obviously the Hindu culture, and one of the things that I guess phased that aspect of it out was the cultural, I mean, you could say like synthetism, or like the blend of English culture, English liberalism, classical liberalism, and the effect it had on the colonies, because it did blend. It did blend, but also because it was a positive force. It was a progressive force in that age because it did progress society forward. So I mean, yeah, it did. I was just going to say, yeah, I mean, also like with India, I mean, when it came to, you compare us to the Spanish, I mean, the Spanish were very much rigorous in their treatment of other religions, in the sense that they, it was burn all heretics, burn all pagans sort of mentality, especially in their Latin American colonies. But I mean, as you said with us, we respected the Hindu faith in India.
Well, believe it or not, the main reason we actually went to America was not only to antagonize the Spanish, but was because Queen Elizabeth was worried about how the Spanish were treating the natives. Obviously, there was other factors such as becoming rich and all of that, and gaining territory. But one of the reasons was to treat the Native Americans a little bit better. Because what the Spanish used to do was they used to read out. I think they used to read out this thing which it said, if you don't convert to Catholicism, then we're just going to rape and kill you all. And because the Native Americans couldn't understand Spanish, obviously they couldn't understand what they were saying, so they just used that as an excuse to pillage them, which was completely immoral, completely evil.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, someone in chat, I'm not defending progressivism, so calm down. No, I mean, yeah, the Spanish, much of their drive was, a lot of it was actually down, because I mean, a lot of the narrative is that it was down to gold, silver, that sort of stuff. A lot of it was down to the more sort of mission of converting and proselytizing the natives, and as you said, a lot were enslaved. There was elements of the Catholic Church at the time in the Latin America that wanted to protect them from becoming enslaved, and so you had that sort of dynamic as well. I mean, the Queen Elizabeth stuff, which I didn't actually know, but it doesn't surprise me, because we forget that in this country, the concept of slavery was banned in the 13th century, if I'm agree. The concept of an individual being owned as property was banned I believe it is also tied to the Magna Carta as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, again, this it's a real shame that our education system doesn't have this sort of context to it, because it doesn't. In many ways, it paints. If it did, it would paint history in a more interesting light, because you could then see how nations developed in the way they did. It could also, it might also provide some great context of why places like Spain would adopt the two extremes of communism and fascism, and same with Germany as well. But no, it'd be a real. It's a real shame that we haven't got to that. I was going to say, is there anything else that you would like to state about this whole event that you've seen been going around, that you want to clarify? Because
well, I think it doesn't matter how much I tell people that what they're seeing doesn't actually represent my views. They're never gonna, they're never gonna believe me. But
no.
If it meant freedom of speech was going to be protected at my university, and that would result in my name going down the drain, then it was a sacrifice I was willing to make. I don't want anyone else being in the same circumstance that I found myself in, or I'm in right now. I want people to say their opinions freely, and be allowed to oppose and challenge ideas.
No, that's good. And again, those who will no doubt watch this video and might comment on it afterwards, this isn't about what Elizabeth said years and years ago, where even mainstream media and a lot of your friends on the radical left as well, in shows that you watch, also would make similar jokes. Because I mean, again, if you take those TikTok videos as genuine manifesto, serious political pledges, then that's on you. That says more about you than anybody else. But we're talking about is Rule Britannia. Number one, is it a offensive term? Absolutely not. And number two, should you be suspended and cancelled for saying it? Absolutely not. And I would say the general consensus is probably on our side on this particular point. And I think, again, I'm really proud actually with the media, because in many ways it would have been. I know that a lot of the free speech. Has the Free Speech Union got in contact with you about this?
Yeah, they wanna associate with me as well, which is quite good. But
that's
they've
really
got
good.
in contact with me, because what happened was, due to the backlash and the Rule Britannia thing, a lot of my societies at university have disassociated with me unfairly without knowing any context at all. So hopefully, can get some help with that.
Yeah. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous, because they're effectively treating you like a sort of leper, and you're being kicked out of the village because you have this horrendous curse. And I hope that something. I hope the more that, and I do say to people who are watching this, who might go, who are at university or wherever in the workplace, because it is always now wherever. Write to the Free Speech Union, write to these journalists that we've mentioned here, because the more you do this, the more that we no longer normalize the concept of cancel culture. We then make it socially unacceptable, and that's the aim that we must be working towards. We need to make this ethos socially unacceptable and not normal. That's what I hope. That's why I hope the outcome from all this will happen, because too many people have this really bad habit of following the crowd when it comes to an event that happens, and then they'll automatically believe what everyone else is saying. And I think that's when it comes to the sort of affiliations where they dropped you. I think it's more it's just this ruthless social media Chinese whispers going on.
Yeah, exactly. It's completely true.
And I say we're probably coming to 1 hour, so we've done quite well actually. I think sort of covering the basis. I'll probably just say, does anyone in chat want to ask Elizabeth a question relating to this story as well? Is there anything
I'll
that?
be happy to answer.
Yeah, and I'll just give them a few seconds to.
See, like someone still, sorry, I saw it before. Someone's still bringing up a comment I said. Just to make it clear, that again was when I was 16. That wasn't in an edgy context. It was literally, again, I think I addressed it before, trying to think of the most foul thing I could say to the people who've been tormenting me, to the point where, I was probably, well, I was in a very low part of my life where I just didn't want to wake up anymore. And again, I won't repeat those things again. They absolutely do not represent my values. Anyone who knows me knows that those things aren't my principles and aren't my ideology. And it's just sad that, I think the worst part about it is I would never apologize to the left, and never. I think that's ridiculous, because obviously, don't try to please those who hate you, please those who love you. But it hurts to, people say your things and you believe in things that you actually don't. I think that's quite scary.
I mean, I don't believe in this idea that if you say something to somebody else where it quite clearly you're in the wrong and you shouldn't have said that, and you apologize to the person that you said to directly, then in my opinion that's it over. If they accept the apology,
I
you move
actually,
on.
believe it or not, I actually did apologize to the person I said that to, because I realized, it was way too far and it was just vile. And he accepted the apology, and he actually said to me, I'm sorry about all this backlash. I never reported it myself. Funny enough, the person who did actually report it to my college, well, 3 years back, I did an interview with him 3 years back, which he's recently posted on YouTube, trying to get some clout out of it, which is quite interesting.
Yeah.
So he's trying to profit off me being in the Telegraph, saying, "Hey, I used to be friends with her." It's to be expected, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I know, I know some will be accusing that I'm also chasing it, but I also thought to do a shout out quickly to I think it's a Twitter account called AUP, which he's a Yorkshire chap, who raised the story, because I saw it on, like, I think, trending, and Rule Britannia and student being cancelled. I didn't actually know it was until I actually clicked on it, and I didn't know it was you, because I recognised you obviously from Twitter.
Yeah.
I was a bit taken. I was taken back by what you said, because I was expecting, because I mean, there was one Twitter account, the first one I saw, called I think it's like a chap called Otto or something, who just said it wasn't just about Rule Britannia, it was many other things, and it was like, okay, what was it then?
It wasn't. It wasn't. And again, for the people watching who are against me, you can dislike me, you can dislike my beliefs, you can dislike, everything I stand for. But like, I'm honestly telling the truth. The two reasons I got suspended was the Rule Britannia thing and the comment saying, "I don't understand that if you hate Britain and you hate our military, why would international students come to a British university?" Those were the two comments that I was, suspended for. And the journalists have seen this. I sent them to the emails. People in that call can vouch for me and say, "Hey, she didn't say anything else," because it's completely true. But people, again, it's the thing with the narrative, isn't it? If it goes against their ideology, they'll try and cherry pick to put themselves in the right, I suppose.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think we got one comment from who we got a comment from. We got a comment from. We've got a couple of comments that come in, so we'll go for it. Got from Dylan. Here we go. So, do you think that the university will apologise for excluding you, or will they defend their corner?
They have apologised. They have apologised, which is really good, and they've set up precautions to make sure this doesn't happen again. Again, I don't know if it was a mistake. I don't know if they actually thought I was being racist. But again, it's happened to other students in the past at this university, and I want it to not happen to anyone else again. I did have a lady message me, I think, who's a staff member at the university, and said if there's anything he can help you with, just email me. So I think they're defending my corner now, which is quite good.
Yeah, I mean that is good, because there are some universities out there who who would probably join in with the mob itself. So I'm really glad that Aberdeen University has actually stepped up and is defending the right for educational discussion and freedom of expression, because that's a very important thing. So good job, Aberdeen University, even good job. You get a cookie. So next comment we got from Rory, our favourite guest, Rory Herbert. Elizabeth, did I get this right? Can a student union actually ban you from campus?
So the student union can ban me from using any of the student union facilities. Now I'm at home studying at the moment, so I'm not actually in Aberdeen. But if I was, I probably might have been banned from the cafeteria, since that's in their facility. I would have been banned from any offence. I would have been banned from any meetings for 2 weeks. Again, it's not it's not a long ban. It's only 2 weeks, but imagine again if that happens to another student in the future, and that keeps happening, and maybe it's longer, maybe it's a month for them.
Yeah.
Then that would be completely ridiculous. I know universities, which aren't my universities, they're ones down in England, which have suspended students for a year over comments, which is quite ridiculous.
It is, and I mean, again, anybody. Nobody now. I mean, anybody. If you see anybody, people in chat, if you see anybody saying that cancel culture doesn't exist, I mean, I think this is probably the best example of where something which is such a non-issue, as I stated before, and such a non-controversial statement as Rule Britannia, and what it's led to, as I said, a 2-week ban by the student union, and the idea that they can ban you from the cafeteria, which what would you do if you were in like the residential halls at Aberdeen? That one is actually quite an interesting one. What would you actually do?
Well, the resident halls aren't affiliated with the student union. I think they're separate. They work with the university itself, so I wouldn't have been banned from my accommodation.
No, but if you were at the university, would you be? Where would you go to eat? Really, would you have to go out?
Well, not a lot of people meet at the student union anyway, so it would probably be around the campus.
Right. Okay. So that's not too bad, but I imagine it. Again, if this does happen to somebody, I said the more extreme examples, and you're actually staying at the university itself, it would be a very isolating experience. I mean, it's very cult-like. I mean, someone just said, I think in chat, it is very cult-like. I mean, I think of the Jonestown cult, where their members would be punished in sort of ways where it would be sort of like a ritualistic humiliation. And it just baffles me that it can happen on universities, which, I mean, I don't want to say every university, but it definitely is looking like that. I think we got another one. I think this is from John Stevens. Liberalism is increasing in general. Where does the future lie for true conservatism? Is it just a case of waiting for the cultural and political pendulum to swing?
I don't understand what it's getting at. Is that just me?
So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, John. I think he's wondering, because I think he. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what he's trying to say is that if I'm to understand this, the Conservatives aren't, or the Conservatives in this country at least, aren't fully equipped to either out of ignorance or lack of understanding, aren't mentally equipped to deal with this sort of behaviour that you've experienced on university.
Yeah.
And and so he's sort of asking, where does the future for conservatism lie? Because if this persists, and as we said, gets worse, the very concept of conservatism will be effectively dead, or it'll be to a point where I can generally see it being made illegal.
I'll tell you this for sure. The Conservative Party, or any associations to it, do kneel to council culture. I'll tell you that for sure, and which is really scary because, like I said, you kneel to council culture, you're literally just giving the left what they want, and they'll keep doing it until you say anything that disagrees with them, which is what they've done for years now.
Yeah, I've seen it as well. I mean, some of the associations actively supported Black Lives Matter, even after even after the media sort of cottoned on to that they were openly Marxist, abolish the family and what have you. That some associations still supported them. Let's just see what other questions we got. I got one from Right Honourable Fez. Have you looked at any legal actions against the student union?
No, again, it was a mistake on their part. I don't want to take it any further, but I think I'm looking into actions against the societies which have suspended me without any investigation.
Well, there you go. Yeah. It's the important thing in these sort of things. It's knowing. Again, going back to Machiavelli, it's knowing when the battles, where which ones to fight, when to fight them, and where to fight them. Because obviously, I imagine from this you do want some element of change to come from this. I was going to say, have you received any support from any politicians at all?
I think his name was Richard Tice. He tweeted about the story, which was like mind blowing. Is that his name? The guy who's
Richard
the
Tice,
leader of yeah, that's it. Yeah, which was really good. So he's one of the politicians who tweeted about it. So yeah, Reform UK. The people who have our interests, maybe.
I mean that is that's really good. Again, very shame. I mean, I would expect every Conservative MP, every Conservative figure, especially up in Scotland, to be supporting you on this.
I think maybe the ones in Scotland are probably realised they've already lost the battle with the new hate speech bill. So they're like, oh, that this is to be expected. A student gets kicked out for saying "Will Britannia." It's just something we have to be used to. Now they have that awful hate crime bill.
Yeah, I mean, it's a terrible defeatism attitude, because it's it's like, guys, if you win, you can overturn these bills. I mean, these Blair's vision for Britain are not like Moses coming down with the tablets. It's not set in stone. I mean, you can, even with these majorities, you can overturn, you can end all this, and or you can put measures in place. I mean, I know that there I believe it's Gavin Williamson. He's actually putting in like a free speech officer for English universities. I don't know if that applies to Scottish universities, though.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't, sadly, and I don't think it will. With the SNP in power.
No, I don't think it will. I mean, I've stated it before. I don't think the Scottish Parliament should exist. I don't think it should. I think power should be centralised in the UK Parliament. In that regard, if any other local power needs to be decentralised, you do it for council regions. But it's a real shame what's happening in Scotland at the moment. I'm probably on just I'll just see if there's any more. I don't think there's any more questions. I was going to ask you, do you live in Scotland at all?
No, I live in England, but my dad was born in Scotland.
born in Scotland. I mean, when it comes to, I guess you could say the elections coming up this year. I mean, where do you think the SNP are on the decline? Because some of the polling looks like they're on a decline, or do
Yeah,
you
I think
think?
they are. But the issue is a lot of Scots don't feel represented by Labour, and they don't feel represented by the Conservatives, so they normally go for the SNP,
Yeah,
which hasn't worked out well for them. Obviously, they don't vote SNP because they want independence. They just want to vote for it because they don't have any other choice, sadly.
sadly, yeah. I mean, I think, with the Labour thing, I think in many ways the SNP voters in the sort of old Labour heartlands in Scotland and the northern, what we would say the Red Wall, who would be voting Brexit Party or Conservative at the last election, are in a sort of similar camp, because I do think the Labour Party have reduced themselves to just being a party of university students and the sort of metropolitan London area. Which is, tactically, it's very strange, because a lot of this messaging, and probably a lot of this messaging we've seen coming out of student unions across the country, again, don't resonate with the public in any way, and it makes you wonder. I mean, do you think that they are aware this doesn't resonate with members of the public?
Yeah, I think they are. I think the majority is on our side, but we're too quiet about it.
That's the problem. I mean, it's it's like a sort of red mirage where we think that there is this sort of almighty wave that cannot be stopped, and we're heading this one direction. And in reality, it's just, I would say it's about 3% of the population who genuinely believe in the most radical aspects of all this, and it's a shame, because we're being dictated to by this very sort of fringe group in society. I was going to say, I think those are probably all the questions now. I don't think anyone else has asked any more. Yeah. I think maybe should we wrap it up now?
Yeah, I think so. It's I got to go to bed.
Yes, I got to go to bed as well. But Elizabeth, thank you for coming on to discuss this tonight, and to get your to sort of tell your truth, as we've been hearing, as a sort of a new phrase that's been imported from America, to tell your truth, and just to get your point of view across.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
That's all right, and thank you. I want to also say thank you to the radical left, who, of course, harass Elizabeth regularly, because I would not have done this interview if they didn't constantly bombard me when I was sort of questioning about it. I was. I mean, when I heard that someone said, "You do realize she's a racist and a Nazi," I was like, okay,
yeah,
left wing need to decode that. Probably means you're a reasonable person. Okay.
Yeah, but just think about it this: where are they getting their information from? They're not getting their information from people who are friends with me. They're not getting their information from actual, statements I have made. They're getting their information from people who cherry pick things I've said in the past, and people who bullied me in college and fundamentally hate me. So we have to remember that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the information they got from is certain publications, and also certain Twitter users as well, who also get their information from certain publications, and so you have this revolving echo chamber of real no information, and in some cases no context. Like the idea, I think one thing I will take away from this and highlight at the end here is that you weren't the first person to actually put in the chat there Rule Britannia. It was a friend of yours who was also not from this country. So again, and like you said, when it comes to one of the quote unquote controversial statements you made in your past, you apologized to the chap, and or to the person, and you're on I guess relative good terms now. So it's these sort of things that's important, because it provides it provides, I would say, it's more truthful than what's being put out there.
Yeah, exactly.
It's more truthful, and that's the. I think. I mean, if journalists or political commentators or whoever, you should always strive to truth, even if it's something that doesn't always back your side in all this. And I've come across this where I've had to sort of I've had to call out my own party this evening for a lot of the cowardice that they put out there. I don't want to have to do it, but I can't deny it. There is a lot of cowards in there. There's also a lot of fake Tories. I mean, I'd say about at least 70% of the direct activist base are probably, I would say 70%, probably more like 20%, to be fair. And then the rest are just not awake, let's say. They're not aware of what's going on. But yeah. And as someone just said, rule 5, tell the truth, or at least don't lie. And that's the main thing.
Exactly.
So
is
anyway,
is that Jordan Peterson rule?
That is a Jordan Peterson rule, and
I love that guy. He's great.
He's a great guy, and I'm so glad he's getting better as well. Because it was he's getting better, and he's actually started. He started doing more streaming. I think he's even asked like Elon Musk tonight to be on a podcast with him, which would be amazing.
Yo, let's go! That'd be so cool. I've got to watch that.
Yeah, I would definitely watch that.
Oh, sorry, go on.
I just want to say Rory Herbert, who's one of our he's a veteran, and he just says that he fully supports you in
I just want to respond with that. Comments like that from veterans just make this so worth it. I'm glad I have your support. I don't think anyone else's support matters, as long as the veterans are behind me. Thank you for your service as well.
Yeah, thank you for your service, Rory Herbert, and he's a great guy. I've appeared on. I think he was on Harrian's stream with me, and I didn't actually fully realize, because we were talking about Star Wars and video games, and poor Rory, he's a bit older than us, and so he must have been completely out of his depth when it comes to what we were talking about. But no, he's a great chap. I definitely want to get him on stream. Actually, at one point we could talk about the Army doctrine. That'd be quite a good one, British Army doctrine, maybe, and look at where maybe the American Army is going wrong, because they've definitely been putting a lot of cringe material out there. But anyway, thank you for coming on tonight, and I'll leave you all now, and I'll see you all next week on the next installation of the podcast. So thanks, Elizabeth, for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And good night, everyone.
Good night.